Hi again, everybody. Welcome to my latest edition of How I Don't Understand Sabermetrics or anything that's going on. Apologies as usual for my voice as I'm working with a cold here. There's an article that I found the other day I've been thinking about looking at and want to talk about with you, right? So let's go ahead and we'll take a quick look at this. I have done like no preparation for this other than making the text big enough, which it is kind of silly because we're not going to actually read through this. This comes from the 2006 Baseball Research Journal. And so, I mean, get used to this, right? Looking at articles that are 20 or 40 or 50 or 60 years old is kind of going to end up being my MO because they're easy to access. And I don't want to spend money I don't have, you know, that's the way of the poor YouTuber. Anyway, we'll look at this. They're talking, David Vincent talks here about what he calls a home run production rate. I don't know who David Vincent is, but this is a really stupid statistic. He decided that if you looked at homers per plate appearance, it's difficult to understand, but it's easier if you look at number of home runs per 500 plate appearances because reasons. Anyway, so he showed that this is what the home run production rate looks like through baseball history. He doesn't really comment very much on 1893. Yeah, I think it's 1893, or this era, which is a very interesting era. Doesn't comment much either on the fact that in 1919, home runs per plate appearance were going up. Instead, he's talking a lot about 1920, where we were over here at right over 3 home runs per 500 plate appearances, as opposed to being right under 3. You can sort of see where I'm going with this. And then he talks about this big surge upwards, and he says, okay, so what is it that caused this, right? Let's see if we find this. Yeah, there were 3 rule changes that we're talking about. Just so you know, I'm digging into this because I spent a lot of time a couple years ago doing research on 1920 rule changes. I was playing a 1920 replay with Dynamite Baseball on my own, no YouTube videos. I probably should have tried that then, though. I probably would have kept the project going. I ended up stopping the project because I got to the point where I was spending more time reading in newspapers.com than actually playing the games. Like I would spend 2 hours reading and then 15 minutes playing a game. A couple of major rule changes. One was... fly balls hit over the fence along the left and right field lines would be judged fair or foul according to where the ball passed the fence rather than where it landed. Okay. And it was important a couple times. I mean, it's not going to have a huge impact. Second change was game win ending hits, right? So it used to be that if you hit a ball over the fence, they only count up to the run necessary to score things, and now you get a full home run for it. The old way actually kind of makes sense, but I understand why, because, I mean, he's actually hitting a home run, and so there are a whole bunch of home runs that were lost, and so on and so forth. Remember, this is old. There are more instances known of this now than we had in 2006. RetroSheet's done a very good job of looking into that. Babe Ruth probably lost a couple, but it wasn't that many. And then the third one has a huge effect on hitting. This is all about the end of spitballs and other trick and freak pitches, right? So that's sort of the thing that I want to talk about, right? The last change in 1920 involved the baseball itself. So yeah, we don't actually know that this is the case. There are some people who think that there was a lively ball, some people that think there was not. The reason why I came across this is because I was reading... What was I reading? Well, I can't remember if it was on Reddit or it was on something. Somebody was talking somewhere in the internet world about some statistic thing, and they're like, oh yeah, we start looking at this starting with 1920 because that's when the game of baseball's rules are similar from that time on. They're talking about the spitball. Now, it is true that you see an increase in offense in 1920, but I'm not convinced that it was due to the spitball, right? And the reason why I'm not convinced that it's due to the spitball is because when you look closely at the sort of historical averages for batting and hitting over time, what you'll notice is that okay, let's see here if I can find this. I'm on Baseball Reference as I say this. What you'll notice over time as you look at things and as you look at the way that things have developed. Is that 1920 and 1919 actually don't look that different, and the difference is a man named Babe Ruth. This is the problem that people have when they try to make this sort of statement and they try to, make things appear obvious, right? The problem is that it's just not as simple as you really want it to be, and you want it to say a thing that it's not really saying, right? Okay, so this is bad here. I'm going to open up the screen here again. This is bad because I can't get the rows here to the headings here to show me each row. This one right here is home runs hit per what are we looking at? Per team game, right? So that's this column right here that I'm in. You can see the mouse pointer. And we're going to see this is for the National League. The National League went up from 0.14 per team per game to 0.19 in 1919, then to 0.21 in 1920. And then you see the big increase. So it happens afterwards. It happens after the change and they got rid of Spitball delivery artists, right? I'll show you here what happens in the American League. So we'll look at the same thing. Man, I mean, it's crazy. We're at 1.22 in 2023. It's insane. All right, we'll look at the same thing, right? That's the sort of thing that gives old-timers like me this feeling that something ain't right. So you look over here in the American League, man, they had only 0.09 home runs per team per 9 innings in 1918. It's very, very low. I mean, is that right? That's like nothing. That's that is 1908 territory. It's amazing. And they jumped up to 0.21 in 1919 and then to 0.30 in 1920. And then you see a little bit more of an explosion, but it's actually a little bit less than it was in the National League. Well, and if we look at the 1920 American League, the reason for this is going to become obvious like right away, right? Just look at the numbers of home runs hit per team, right? And there's one that stands out. Oh, look, the New York Yankees, right? Why do the Yankees stand out? You already know the answer if you're watching this. The reason why they stand out is because Babe Ruth hit 54 by himself, right? He hit more home runs by himself than any other American League team, right? We tend to forget that, but it's true, right? That's a pretty big difference. I mean, he hit more home runs as an individual than any of the other 7 teams in the American League. He dominated in 1919 as well, but in 1920, he was just on fire. In fact, his... all right, why are you taking me here? I want to go to the NLCs, and there we go. In fact, when you look at the National League teams, he hit more home runs than every National League team as well, save the Philadelphia Phillies, who in 1920, of course, were playing at the Baker Bowl, where it was pretty easy to hit a home run, right? So that's what's really going on with that statistic, right? The thing that is being quoted here is not Spitballs. That's Babe Ruth. That's the difference that you're seeing there. It is literally one man making that difference, and then things jump up, but the big jump is in the National League. Now, you want to know what I think is happening. Again, I'm not an expert on this subject. I'm kind of a doofus, as they would say in the old Outland comic. But what I think is really going on here is I think that Babe Ruth showed that a certain way of swinging was possible. And he showed that you could swing for the fences and not look like an idiot every time you went up to bat. And once players saw that this was not only possible, but that it was very popular and that it was very effective offensively, they followed in suit. In other words, I don't think that this is, oh man, the Spitball pitchers went away. You want to know the secret? Guys still threw Spitballs up through the 40s, 50s, 60s, up through the 80s, right? We remember Mike Scott, but yeah, we know that Dom Drysdale threw, all sorts of junk pitches. We know about Gaylord Perry. The thing that people don't understand is that when you look at 1907, 1908, 1909, it's not that every pitcher is throwing freak pitches. It's not even 10% of pitchers are throwing these kinds of pitches, right? Because it's not easy to throw, it's not easy to control, and you can really do damage to your arm if you don't learn how to do it properly, right? That's the truth. Go talk with professional pitchers or people who've tried this, especially. Go read Gaylord Perry's book. I've read it, right? That's what he'll tell you. It's not that easy. You don't just spit on a ball and all of a sudden it disappears, right? I mean, you have to actually work at it. It's not an easy thing to learn. That's not what the difference was. I'm telling you, the difference is that hitters saw what Babe Ruth was doing and realized that they could swing like that, and that really created the big revolution in the game. Long story here, though, is that those seasons before 1920 should not be considered irrelevant because it's before, back when they had freak pitches or whatever. We need to consider them as well. I still believe that you should be able to go all the way back to 1893, and honestly, if you don't do that, your history and your statistics are not very good. There you have it. I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Hope my voice gets better before then. Talk to you then. Bye.